Hey guys, I bought this pomegranate in April of 2018. I stuck it in the ground. I let it grow for about a year and a half. Today we're gonna dig it, we're gonna pot it, and we're gonna see what we've got from then till now. So yeah, it grew a pretty good bit. It probably doubled in diameter. It gained a ton of character. It doesn't really even look like the same tree. I normally will be repotting this tree probably late February or early March. It has been just unreasonably warm this entire winter. The last couple of weeks have been an 80 ish, 80 plus. This tree started budding out, so I really have no choice but to go ahead and dig it. We're going to be fairly conservative with the work today, but we are going to go ahead and try and dig it up, work the roots, get into a pot, a suitable pot if we can fit it into one. If not, it will just go into a training pot. This tree does need a fair amount of wiring, but I don't think I'm going to get to it in this video today. I am probably going to do it at the same time. I may just do it off camera due to time issues here. I run out of daylight. But anyway, I'm going to just guide you through the process. I do have a new, I say new, I have a tool for getting rid of these roots pretty easily, and I had put it on the junk pile because one of my dogs got a hold of it and chewed the handle pretty badly, but it's still very useful at cutting through roots. It's not anything clean, but it will rip through them if you're trying to get something out of the ground. So we're going to use that. Uh, So I've been thinking about this tree a pretty good bit over the last couple of weeks, and I do believe this back, you could call it a trunk, this back branch that's really large, needs to go. It's very straight and boring. There's a little bit of what you could call a leader for that back branch that I can cut back to. I hope that it also back buds on the right side from the way that you're looking right now. We'll see. Pomegranates usually respond really well to hard cuts. They backbud like crazy, in my experience anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this while this is in the ground, and then we'll cover it with some cut paste. And I just figured it would be a lot easier to cut this while it is anchored, with all the roots that we're about to get rid of. So once we've cleaned up the chop uh, with our grafting knife, we're just going to use a little bit of, putty. I prefer it to the liquid. And as usual, remember to wet your fingers before you use it, or it's just going to stick to your fingers and not to the cut, which is obviously not what we want here. Yeah, so I'm just going to cover this up pretty well, and then we're going to proceed to undercutting this tree and getting it out of the ground. So over my last couple of videos, I did forget about this one tool that I have. Um, Everybody else probably has one too, but it's this curved root saw, I guess. One of my dogs got a hold of the handle and chewed it up pretty well, so I kind of thrown it into a corner. But it's really, really good at kind of rough cutting roots. As you can see, there's the handle, but it cuts straight through pretty easily, a lot more easily than using a branch saw or something like that. As you can see here, I can cut pretty plainly through most of the roots. It does take a little working, but it's still a lot more easy than using something else would be. Something to mention, I guess, would be the reason I'm going so wide around this tree is it's been in the ground and it's grown a lot over the last year, year and a half, and I'm doing this out of season, and I'm aware of that. It's kind of a risky potting here, but with the way that the weather's been so unpredictable, I think this is probably what's necessary. So I'm giving this tree, plenty of room here, just to kind of get an idea of what the roots look like before I do something that can't be undone, and then I'll reduce once we get an idea of what the root ball looks like. Something a little interesting, as you can see, I'm trying to see how far I have to go with the roots. But you can see the way that the root ball is moving. That general circle is the pot. That's up the size of the pot when I put it in the ground. I did not bother the soil when it went from the pot into the ground. You'll see later that I wish I had. It's pretty poor, but it's interesting that that part of the tree has anchored itself so much, where the new root growth has not anchored it so much. So now I've circled the roots with the shovel. All it really is left to do is to undercut with this root saw once more, get any straggling roots that I've missed the first go around, and it should come straight out of the ground. You can kind of see here my soil mix versus just the regular ground that we have right here. The soil is not great. I do use a mixture of turfus, regular potting soil, cow manure, and then plenty of fertilizer. The turfus acts as a I don't know exactly how you would say it, but it's something that keeps the soil from compacting. If you put regular potting soil into a pot, water it for a month, and it stops absorbing water, it stops draining, and it just turns kind of hard. So my soil mix works pretty well at keeping that loose. Anyway, trees out of the ground, and we're gonna go rinse this off pretty well, and then work on reducing these roots and seeing what we can do. At the top of the screen here, you can see the larger branch that I just reduced before I dug it out of the ground. We're gonna hope that the branch to the left becomes a believable branch in the future. I am going to try to use a new wand, I guess you could call it. That's what they call it at the store. It's a cheap watering wand, and it doesn't work very well. So I may be looking at other options. But we're going to try to go ahead and get rid of this existing layer of soil, get an idea of what the roots look like. We'll reduce them, try and get rid of all the old soil, and we will focus really hard on getting better, well-draining soil under this tree. Um, Pomegranate trees really enjoy drier soil, and they enjoy being drier in general. So a better draining soil, a larger particle size is going to be important. So first impressions, kind of as we expect, we have a lot of large roots that have run, way off into the distance. Um, as you could tell from what I was mentioning earlier, the soil from the original pot was pretty poor. It came out pretty much just like silt or like dirt with no organic matter, no anything. It's just really compact. And as a result, a lot of the roots under the tree where we would hope to have some good feeder roots, a lot of these roots have rotted. I'm going to cut back these large roots that have no feeder roots and hope that they sprout. Throw some feeder roots out, and then we're going to also reduce these what look like dead roots to points where they do appear to have some life left in them, and hope that they branch out from there. From what I have seen with pomegranate trees, this tree should be fine. They're extremely vigorous, almost like a weed. So we should be perfectly fine doing what we're doing today. We're mainly going to be using branch cutters or concave cutters and knob cutters today. Whatever does the trick to get these roots reduced a little bit. We're first going to get rid of these large roots that are growing straight out that have no feeder roots and really no value. We'll try to stimulate some feeder root growth close to the trunk. Once we've got rid of those, we will look at the downward growing roots. Anything that's growing downward needs to be removed at some point or another. You might as well do it now while we've got it out and it's bare rooted. Uh, Once we've got that down, and while we're doing this, we'll take a look at these roots that are rotted or look to be rotted and dead. We'll cut them back. If we can find any point of them that is live, hopefully we can stimulate feeder root growth out of those as well. Um, we're going to be getting a much better soil mix under this tree and around this tree. It's going to drain a lot better. The tree should love it, and hopefully it will spring a bunch of feeder roots close to the trunk, and the next time we repot it, it will be in a lot better shape than it is right now coming out of the ground. This video is going to run pretty long. I'm not going to cut anything just because I want to show you my process from start to finish of a tree that is pretty valuable and one that you would not want to mess up. And if you have any questions, you can comment or message me, and I'll be happy to respond. Um, as you can see, I'm trying to put these roots that I'm trying to put them in the corner so that you can see them. At least right now, I am not removing many feeder roots. Are not too many close to the trunk, so it's not a wealth of feeder roots here. But we're going to remove the ones that we really have no use for. As you can see there, this is just the soil that's under the tree. It's no good. There's no oxygen coming through there, and the only thing that's happening there is roots are suffocating. So as we go along, every few minutes, once I reduce some roots, I'm going to go back in and spray it pretty well. Try to get all of this dirt, this muck, out from under the tree, so that when I do repot it, we can get the good soil in there and start reversing the course. This tree did grow, very well over the last year, as you can tell. I'll try to add a picture in of when I bought the tree, and it was a little over a year ago, actually, about a year and a half ago. It's made just jumps and strides since then, but it's not because of the soil that was here. I believe it's because of my soil that I added in and my fertilizing routine. Because if it was the soil here, if this is what the tree had been living on for the last year and a half, it would have weakened probably significantly. So when we get to the point that we're repotting, I will kind of talk you through the process there of what we want, what we look for. But for right now, I'm just going to continue getting this root ball down a little bit so that we can fit it into something resembling a bonsai pot. Yeah, we've kind of gotten now through the outer tangle of roots. We've gotten up under the tree, and it's kind of a question of how much are you comfortable removing. This is the first time it's been dug in a year and a half. It is out of season. Um, what I really want to do though is to remove the large roots. We're gonna have to do it eventually. We might as well do it now. We're gonna try to preserve as much as we can. One thing that you probably have noticed, you will notice, is I am leaving a little extra on these roots than what I really should be removing. I should be coming a lot closer to the trunk. The reason for that is it is out of season. It is beginning of January or middle January, and it's just been unseasonably warm, really the whole winter, but especially the last couple of weeks. The tree budding out's kind of forced my hand, uh, so I am leaving a little bit more than I really would like to. But in the end, I can do this stepwise. This probably adds an extra year here or there, overall, as far as the development of the roots. But we are at least getting it started kind of towards where it should be. After most of the reduction work has been done, this is what I'm left with. I plan on reducing these roots that are running straight out to the sides. I just kind of want to see how the tree would fit into a pot before I do anything else. So now that we're pretty much finished with this, I'm going to grab a couple of pots that I had in mind for this tree. I see what would work right now, and then we'll get to wiring it into the pot and adding the soil, and we should be done. We've changed the camera angle because when you're viewing a bonsai, you want to view it from the soil level. If you're viewing it from above or below, you don't get the intended perception. So we're going to try to view it from roughly the soil level. This is not perfectly leveled, but it will do the job. Just going to kind of get an idea of what the tree would look like. And these two pots that you see before you, as well as just a training mica pot if we need to, that will kind of be the backup. Like I said, we'll be removing these roots that are sticking out before we actually pot the tree, obviously. We're just going to give it a slow rotation and see what it looks like in each one of these pots. Um, The pot it's in right now is a Koyo. The pot to the left is just a production Yamaki. It is fairly old, but it's a replica of a Kotawari style. Uh, this tree, the front that I want is somewhere right here, which would mean that we would have to rotate the tree so that the long side of the pot was facing this side. And this may be a possibility, but I'm not entirely sure. What I'm doing here is rotating it just a few degrees and then checking the camera because I wasn't sure exactly what my perception or what I saw versus what the camera was seeing. So what I'm doing here is trying to see if this would actually fit. I really want the soil level up about half an inch from what you can see here. So I believe that if I do keep it in this pot, we're going to have to go back and revisit some of the larger roots that are still growing downwards that I kind of went a little soft on. And yes, that is my stomach. Uh, I filmed this about 5 o'clock and I hadn't eaten that day. So I was getting pretty hungry. I did have a cup of coffee later, if it makes anybody feel any better, but you're probably going to hear my stomach several more times in the next few minutes. Um, so this is the Yamaki or the Kotawari replica of the Yamaki pot. It looks like it's slightly deeper. However, the internal dimensions, it's actually a tiny bit thinner. It's a little beetle that was crawling on the tree. We didn't want to hurt him, so we'll just let him do his own thing. But the back to what I was saying, the internal dimensions of the pot, even though it maybe looks a little bigger than the Koyo, it's actually a little smaller on the inside. And I would have to reduce the roots on this a little more than I want to this go around in order to fit it into this pot. But the last thing that we really want is to kill the tree trying to fit it into a pot its first time around. We always have the mica. Um, these trees may benefit from being in a slightly deeper pot anyway. That may be what we end up doing. But at this point, I am kind of partial to the Koyo. However, this angle does look pretty good. That little branch I just pointed to, the little tiny nub there, may be a point for a future front, a future leader for the tree. I'm not in love with the current top. It's pretty straight and boring when you don't see it from this angle specifically. So if I can change that up in the future, I will. It's just something to keep in mind. Our other option is this cheap mica pot. I think it costs like 20 bucks or something like that online. It's a little bit deeper than the other two. It's about the same internal dimensions, just maybe a half inch or an inch deeper. So it may fit the tree a little bit better. To be honest, it does. Um, However, at this point, I kind of had my heart set on that Koyo. So a little spoiler alert there, but we are going to try and fit it into the Koyo. So I've removed a few more of those large downward growing roots just to make that tree fit into this pot. We're going to walk you through how to tie this tree into a pot, how to wire it in there properly, how to get the soil in, everything like that. A disclaimer, I am not the best at wiring trees into pots. It's fundamental that everybody should practice and learn. I'm going to put a link in the description actually to a website that has a how-to on how to do this. The way that I'm doing here is this pot has 4 holes. I've run 2 wires through, like one into a hole through the bottom and up out of another hole. So I have 2 wires here. We're going to need this little hook onto one of them to complete the tie-in, and there are a couple of other ways to do that, and I'll actually end up going through a couple of those because this does not work quite as well as it should. So here's what we've got as far as the roots go. It should be fine, should grow back well. I'm going to make sure that I've got this tree kind of the right angle that I want. We're going to add a small layer on the bottom here because I am putting this tree a little lower as far as the roots go than it probably should be. It probably needs a little deeper pot. But I'm going to add a tiny layer here, add a mound in the middle as usual to allow this tree to kind of sit on that mound. We'll kind of work it down on that so there are no air pockets in the bottom. That just makes it easier when we're using the chopsticks to work the soil into these roots. And when you have a tree like this that has a bunch of wild, crazy roots, that's a little more difficult. You have to really make sure that you get the wire, excuse me, that you get the soil up under the tree. Otherwise, too much oxygen is just as bad as too little oxygen, and you'll end up with no roots where you should have them. So we're going to go ahead and wire the tree in. The way that we do this is I'm going, let's see, how would that be? Counterclockwise, I guess. We take one to the right, we twist it to the adjacent wire. I'm going to use some pliers. It's just a little easier. You probably should use some sort of tubing to protect the roots here that are coming in contact with this wire, because as I torque this down, it can be damaging to the roots. This should be under the soil line ideally, so it may not be seen, but you may want to use some tubing. So the way that we do this, we've done one, we will just continue clockwise, counterclockwise, excuse me. You can go either way, but I'm going counterclockwise. So we've twisted the first, we'll take the second, and we will twist it into the third. We will twist the third into the fourth. We'll just go line by line here. And when we get to the last, I'll show you where the little hook comes into play. I do find it easier to start the twist by hand, although you don't have to. I'm a little clumsy with pliers, if you can't tell. So I try to get it started with my fingers, and we just twist this down. When you finish, the tree should be stationary in the pot. The point of doing this is you've just reduced tons of roots off of this tree, or if it's a healthy pot, you're repotting it. Um, Either way, we don't need the tree moving. That could injure any new roots that are forming. It could blow out of the pot. You know, this is going into a bench, so the point is to make it stationary and safe. Um, Here, I used a little, too little wire here, and so what I'm going to try to do is just kind of use another hook, and we're going to wire these two together in the middle instead. The wire to the right should have kept going to the right, but this is just a little improvisation. You can, I mean, you shouldn't have to get creative, but you have an issue like this is a possibility. Another way to do it. Ideally, what we want here is for this wire to be out of sight of the viewer. We also want it to keep the tree completely stable in the pot. You should be able to pick up the tree and the pot come with it with no disturbance. Um, Here, I'm using the two hooks that I had left. Normally you would just have one, but because I kind of messed this up a little bit, we're using two. Um, and as you're going to see here in a minute, I did just twist these two together, which is how you would normally do it. You would take the hook that I put on at the beginning and twist it onto the final fourth wire. In this case, that fourth wire is being replaced by the second hook because of my poor wiring skills. Um, but as you're going to see here in a minute, I may have twisted the wire too many times. It may just be poor quality wire, but it decides here that it's going to break. That's break number one, and break number two comes here in just a moment. But this is where we have another way that we can do it, and I'll show you that in just a minute. I left the sigh in there because this was at the end of about 6 or 7 hours of working in the yard and doing tree stuff, and I was hungry and grumpy. So I figured I'd leave it in. If anyone knows me, they are probably laughing right now. But so what we're going to do is remove those two hooks, and then we're just going to take another loop of wire and loop it through these two corners and tighten that down, and that will work just as well. It's not orthodox, but it works, and that's really all that matters when it comes down to it. I'm definitely not saying that the right way is not the right way. What I'm going to link to you in the description, and I'll probably put a pop-up here at some point. You should click it and read it. It tells you how to do what I'm doing right now, step by step, with pots that have 4 holes, 3 holes, 2 holes, and even 1 hole. Never used one like that, but it can be done. Um, like I said, what I'm doing here is just improvising. It had been a long day, and I was ready to get this done, but I did want to make sure it was in there properly. We can't just leave it tied in 3/4 of the way. That won't do it. For strong wind or animal, I have 3 dogs. Very likely that one of them could try and bump, run hit the bench or something, and it could very easily tip the tree or disturb any new roots that may be growing. Not to mention, I'm going to be probably moving this tree in and out over the next week or two because of the cold weather that's coming, just to protect the buds that have decided to pop and the leaves that have started growing already. So once we've gotten this tree tightened in, I'm just going to remove any excess wire that just doesn't serve any purpose and it's just kind of an eyesore. Um, this corner look fine. They're not going to be seen. So it's in there. I'm going to give it a little test tug just to make sure. The trunk size of this tree is going to look pretty good in this pot. The pot's not too big for the tree. It's not too small. It does fit it pretty well. So I think it will look good together. What we're going to do here, and what you've probably seen me doing, and what you should know to do, is work your soil into the areas that it's not going to get naturally without you kind of working it. So mainly that's under the trunk. This tree has a lot of curves and little hollows and things like that, so it's especially important to do your best to try and work that in there. Not to mention, we did talk about the roots that were under the trunk or that were at the base of the trunk that were not really healthy. That was because the soil that was around them was very poor. That was because the soil didn't drain very well. It didn't do anything except suffocate those roots. So the important thing here is to make sure we are getting this down into that area. Um, Soil composition here, particle size is a little large because, like I did mention, these trees do enjoy warmer weather. They enjoy drier soil, so we want something that drains pretty well. I have a good sprinkler setup now. I have like a mister setup, and I may even do a video on it at some point. It was not hard to set up. It's kind of a greenhouse mister setup. It wouldn't work for a very large garden, but for this it works fine. Um, but the soil mix here is equal parts akadama, pumice, lava, um, pine bark, and it may actually be cedar bark that's been sifted. And then I added a handful or two of horticultural charcoal, just supposed to add a little bit of nutrient. I'm going to be fertilizing this uh, fairly regularly. I want to make sure it recovers well, but I do want to start refining the tree, so I don't need a ton of growth at once. And these trees do, despite what most people say, these trees do thicken up pretty quickly. So if I fertilize it too much and I'm busy for a week, the new branches, the new leader, they may thicken up too much to be believable. I would have to cut them off and start over. So we're going to fertilize it, but not as much as you would think. Normally I could put some moss on the top of the soil here, uh, but there's not really a whole lot of feeder roots here that exist in the first place. I'm going to keep it moist. We are not in summertime, so it's not going to dry out over the span of a day. I'm not too worried about that. What I am worried about is getting the soil under the tree, like I've said. I'm going to keep working it until I cannot make the soil level go down anymore by agitating it with the chopstick. thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope maybe you learned something. I am excited about this tree and what it should be in the future. I do have several more trees coming as spring ramps up. Also, I'm going to be filming a video where I answer questions that people have asked, mainly on Reddit. But if you have any questions you'd like me to include, go ahead and post them in the comments, and I'll be happy to address anything. As long as you get it down in the next 2 or 3 days, I should have it answered for you. I'll leave you with a couple pictures of the tree as it's finished and as it's potted, and let me know what you think. Let me know what you think I should do with it. Leaders, what the front should be, etc., etc.